Mandy is a 2018 film directed by Panos Cosmatos and co-written by him. It stars Nicolas Cage, Andrea Riseborough, and Linus Roach. It's less of a horror film and more of a psychedelic action film with an emphasis on trippy visuals in a surreal world. Also of note is the lighting in the film, which is almost unique with a dazzling array of reds, purples, and blues. Even the most ordinary of scenes have an additional level of saturation that gives the film an ethereal film. That pervades the entirety of the picture, which evokes dark fairy tales, myths, and religious texts. There's a YouTube channel called Every Frame a Painting, and Mandy exemplifies that saying to an incredible degree. The sheer artistry displayed is so impressive, and it makes the entire experience a visual treat. Unfortunately, that does come with a few downsides, as the actual story and character development is fairly minimal, and it can be slow at times. Still, these are minor quibbles in an otherwise incredible film. Mandy evokes horror films from the 1980s and 70s with love and care, including explicit references, with the main characters living by Crystal Lake, and the chainsaw duel taken from Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. It also has similar themes to the original Chainsaw, with a mix of supernatural and secular, creating a unique sort of tension, as the audience is unsure if what is happening is real or not. There's also the element of cannibalism with the biker gang, and the Sawyer proxy in the Children of the New Dawn. Overall, the film is practically unique in the emotions that it evokes, and is something every horror fan needs to watch. That's not to say everyone will like it. Some people will hate the lack of plot and minimal exposition, but there will likely still be something they enjoy from it, even if it's just to watch one of Nicolas Cage's best freakouts. A note from a Cage defender. He's an Academy Award-winning actor who's been in dozens of films because he is a good actor. He's been in a number of bad films, everyone has, and, given the number of projects he is worked in, this is inevitable. But even in the worst trash, he's the best part of them. He offers an elevated style of acting, effectively speaking to the back row, like thespians do in plays. In effect, all of his emotions are loud, excruciatingly so, in both his speaking and his facial movements. Sometimes this come across as cheesy or hammy, but other times, like this, or Pig, it's perfection. This ends the spoiler-free section. Mandy begins with a poem about rock and roll, setting up exactly what the film is going to be about. Death and metal, sometimes both. Cage, playing Red Miller, although I'll just be referring to him as Cage, is shown working as a logger, using a chainsaw for its intended purpose. This may be the first time this has happened in a horror film. He heads back home to Mandy, who is an artist and who works at a gas station. The film wants to make their love as clear as possible to the audience. This is shown through the warm colors that cover the house together, and the little moments between them. Cage is amazed at her drawing, and he stares at it, and her, and there's a quiet moment of them just existing together. Next they have a conversation about their favorite planets. It's such a small thing, but it feels like such a real conversation, and it shows, not tells, the genuine bond between them, which is necessary to ensure the audience cares. Mandy is structured much like a typical rape revenge flick, a subgenre of horror that has always been on the more extreme end, and finds its origins in I Spit on Your Grave or Last House on the Left. In this case, there is no rape, but the structure is the same. Established characters, established villains, horrible event happens, small recovery, then revenge. It does have a different timeline than a lot of those films, however. Mandy is 2 hours long. The first 20 minutes sets up the relationship. The next 15 or so establish the antagonists. Their home is then invaded, and Mandy and Cage kidnapped. But this is not the horrible event, although in a more typical structure, it would be. Instead, Mandy has an extended scene with the cult, culminating in her laughing at the leader's naked form, again, an inversion of the typical genre fare. There is then another 10 minutes of murder in the aftermath, then another 10 of recovery, including the Cage freakout to end all freakouts. A fascinating moment occurs during it, where he stares directly at the camera, as if daring the audience to laugh. The situation, a man in his underwear and a t-shirt, drinking on the toilet and shouting, has inherent comedy, but, after what the audience has just seen, the tragedy overwhelms the absurdity of this situation. As the scene goes on, however, the scales may tilt, and that's when Cage looks up, acknowledging the viewer's experience in an unusual fourth wall break. There is then a bit of exposition in the preparation scenes, where Cage sees an old friend and gets a crossbow. Then there is a blacksmithing montage, where he forges a unique weapon. Buffy would probably call it a scythe, but it's more of an axe, and nicknamed the Beast. The inspiration comes from the logo of the band Celtic Frost, specifically the T and their stylized heavy metal name. After this, the revenge occurs, taking up the remainder of the film. The cult is led by Jeremiah Sand, played by Linus Roach. As described in external material to the film, he was raised by an abusive mother and father, who he murdered before moving to LA and trying to make it big in music. This is obviously inspired by the Manson family, and the group that he's with in the film is not his first attempt at a following. He has a mewling presence, shown to throw a tantrum at the slightest inconvenience, and begging Cage for his life at the end of the film, again playing with the tropes of horror films. While Jeremiah had an abusive past, Mandy has a similar one. She relates the story of her father killing starlings, and she bears a scar that is never explained. These similarities don't end in histories, but also in appearance. There is a later scene where the shot fades between their two faces, overlaying them. The first few times, it's almost unnoticeable. Despite this, when it comes to how they react to things, they couldn't be more different. She is strong, and he is weak. But despite this, she is still the one who ends up dead, lit on fire and burned to ash. From that ash rises Cage, now determined to get revenge on the cult and the seemingly demonic bikers who kidnapped him. The bikers, called the Black Skulls, apparently took some bad acid and have transformed into something less than human. They growl and groan and drip. They're never shown fully, always in shadows, and it's never explicit whether they're something truly supernatural or just monstrous people. The fact that Cage's car flips when he hits one certainly lends to the former. They are far from the only fantastical elements to the film. Early on, Mandy reads from a fantasy series describing crimson, primordial skies, the same kind that Cage drives off into in the end of the film. The use of drugs throughout the film, often followed up by an animated sequence, also ascribes almost mythical powers to them, giving greater awareness, strength, or knowledge. The one who creates the drugs lives in a pitch-black room with a pet tiger. Cage's character is represented as a tiger several times, so in a metaphorical way, he's let free by the drugs. This review has been wandering enough, but suffice it to say the film is a fascinating watch that's almost unique. The closest thing was probably last year's Mad God, which sustained even further from a traditional story structure, and had creepy imagery that was a step above what is offered in Mandy. The film is a cult classic, and everyone who wants to see it already has, but it might just be time for a rewatch. If you've enjoyed this review or other videos, please like and subscribe, and thank you for watching. Have a nice day.